Everyone loves the adventure genre. Movies, D&D, and of course video games are all platforms that allow us to escape into adventures that we could only dream of. And as video games evolved in the 80s and 90s, so did the ability to give players a real sense of adventure. Going from just playing in foreign settings and facing environmental obstacles to immersive levels that felt like you were discovering these locations yourself. Enter Lara Croft. She's like Indiana Jones. She raids tombs as the ultimate cool factor, and it's caused by sexual panic for generations. The only difference? While Indy had adventure films in a chokehold, Lara's character dominated the gaming space with Tomb Raider. The only question is, how does the debut entry in this series hold up? Welcome to Replay Value, the show where we look at old games and see if they're still fun. Today we return to normal after our Superman debacle, and we're going to take a look at the original Tomb Raider for the PlayStation. Now, this was a really formative game for my childhood because I would always watch my dad play it when he originally got on the PlayStation, and it was always a little too difficult for me, so I would try it here and there and then ultimately just hand it back to him. Even with that, there are parts of this game that I never played myself that are still etched into my memory just from watching him play this game so much. And if it's that memorable, it must be a good game, right? And of course, if you like this series so far, I upload episodes weekly. Go ahead, subscribe, comment below, and let me know if there's a game that you want me to tackle in the near future. That's enough shilling for now. Let's take a look at the game. In 1996, a small team of developers working for Core Design set out to make a new adventure title. They wanted a game where you would explore tombs, caves, and pyramids and give players something that felt as exciting as the Indiana Jones movies. In fact, early designs were super close to Indy himself before the devs realized they should make a change, so they decided to go to the route of an equally cool female lead. Now, I can't quote anyone on this, but just looking back at it myself, I feel like this was one of the best decisions they could have made, because one of the biggest draws to this series is Lara's character. Don't be perverted. Not only was there just a lack of female leads in games back then, but this allowed them to create a character that still had all of the same moxie and charisma and just overall cool factor they were aiming for, but ultimately avoiding a lawsuit. Instead, they basically just took a mix of Indiana Jones and Tank Girl and made one of the most iconic video game characters of all time. Thus, Tomb Raider was released on the PlayStation, PC, and Sega Saturn. The game was critically acclaimed and awarded upon release. It even became one of the first PlayStation titles to be considered platinum. It was consistently viewed as a groundbreaking, immersive experience from front to back. You go through multiple levels, searching for artifacts and platforming across different environments from Chile, Greece, Egypt, and Atlantis. If that list makes you think the game gets weird, it does. The level design encouraged exploration with secrets that would give you weapons, ammo, and med packs that you would desperately need as the game went on. And many levels had multiple paths, and while it didn't change the gameplay per path too much, it really did feel like you were the one exploring these locations. The enemies were varied as well, starting you off against wolves, bats, and I know there's a bear here. Where? It is here, right? It doesn't take long to ramp up. You go from animals to dinosaurs and then exploding mummies, and wow, that really did escalate fast. So far, with all the good things I've talked about, it would seem that I don't even need to try and play this game. This is by far and away the most revered title that I have looked at in the series so far. But that is ultimately why I started making these videos. Because as fun and groundbreaking as this game was in '96, if we were to pick it up today just out of nostalgia, are we going to have a good time with it? Before we go into anything else, let's check out the tutorial level. This takes place in Lara's home, Croft Manor. Here, you become accustomed to the game's controls and oh, no. That's right. The controls in this game are rough. Keep in mind, this came out before PlayStation released the DualShock controller, so D-pad movement was the name of the game, and while some games kind of worked around this, Tomb Raider not so much. You can't really change direction mid-run, causing Lara to run in large curves, and jump controls absolutely take some getting used to. You will miss plenty of jumps that get you killed or at the very least inconvenience you. Thankfully, there's not a huge learning curve to these controls, and while there's times where the jump definitely does not feel super responsive, there is a consistency to how to get it to work, and you combine that with the fact that when this game came out, most people just kind of looked past it. If you're like me though, and you're cashing in on nostalgia, this may become a little bit of a bother as you go through the game. Anyways, the tutorial section walks you through the basic controls and gives you some practice with platforming and swimming before you set off on your adventure. The opening cutscene shows us a lady being foreshadowed. before we are introduced to Laura. The tone is set right away that she is a badass adventurer, as Southern Boy over here sets up a video call with Jacqueline Natla, who offers Laura a boatload of cash and the opportunity to raid an ancient tomb in Chile in search of an artifact with mystical powers. Laura sets off, some wolves come by, and multiple gun safety tips are violated before you first pick up the controller. Then you are met with the coolest loading screen of all time. If you were a kid in the late 90s who knew about this game and you didn't stare up at big objects before walking into them like you're about to just adventure into them for some reason, I don't believe you. This shit had me staring at the front door to a Safeway as if I was gonna go in and steal deli meat. The caves set you up with your first real action and platforming of the game. It's friendly enough for those who skip the tutorial and gives you a nice idea of what to expect moving forward. When you enter this room with the broken bridge, you see your first real challenge, 2 wolves, unless you're like me and you just decide to Obi-Wan them from the high ground. The second level is cool because it really introduces you to the exploration side of things and some of the more mystifying scenery you'll see in the game. I just wish I could find this fucking bear I was telling you guys about. It's in here somewhere. If this was the game the rest of the way, that'd be pretty cool. But 3 levels in, you are given one of the strangest but most awesome wake-up calls that sets up the tone for the rest of the game. Dinosaurs. After descending the caves of Chile, you find 2 dinosaurs. And for first-time players, this is such a cool, sudden discover. Oh, yep, there's a T-Rex. Quick little side story. One of the first nightmares from my childhood that I remember involves this dinosaur and Rex from Toy Story spawning from my car bed I had when I was 3 years old, cornering me by my toy box and trying to eat me. And if you think that's weird, the other nightmare from that period of my life that I remember vividly was Lando Calrissian shooting me in the head with a blaster. I was 3 or 4 years old. The rest of the first set of levels takes you to your first tomb, while gradually upping the rewards from the secrets you find and the combat, teaching you to master the ability of jumping around and shooting targets mid-air, which all comes to fruition after you find the Scion, the artifact that you are looking for. You escape the tomb in the ultimate indie fashion before having your first human encounter with the man who sent you on this job. Doubt that evolves into anything else. Sidebar, the soundtrack to this game is amazing. It also includes one of the most anxiety-inducing holy shit something is coming songs I've ever heard in a video game. While it's a key indicator that something is coming your way, sometimes it just randomly plays for no reason. You'll be walking and then boom, anxiety attack. Or my personal favorite, you'll be back into the area where the track played and it starts up again, even though you're staring at the corpse of what triggered the song in the first place. Next up is Greece, and God, Laura is so cool. You stand cool in front of another building, and this is where Tomb Raider really starts living up to the sense of adventure we signed up for. The variety in enemies increases, the platforming steps up seemingly tenfold, and everything just feels that much more immersive. One thing that sticks throughout this whole game is the feel that each level truly is a trial, and whether the goal is to grab certain items or pass through a set of challenges, a lot of the game's levels feel like an adulterated Zelda dungeon, and that honestly is awesome. After Greece, you go to Egypt, where by now you should have your full arsenal of weapons, and the difficulty really starts to set in. This whole set of levels tends to overlap in ways the previous sections didn't, and most of the enemies you face will be these mummified creatures that explode upon death. Seriously, where is this godforsaken bear? Finally, after you collect the next artifact that Natla sent you after, she herself and her cronies shake you up outside and take your weapons, which then leads to Laura catching up and stowing away on their boat in the most nonchalant way possible. I've praised the level design a good amount in this game so far, but I truly believe that these last 3 levels in Atlantis are a masterclass in their own right. The first level has you adventuring through Natla's mines and the entrance to Atlantis, completely unarmed, in search of your weapons. In between some complex platforming sessions, you face off against each of her henchmen. Yes, that's an Atlantean underground skate park. They might have shredded back then. We don't know. The Atlantis level itself has you scaling the inside of a pyramid, and after each trial, you see yourself getting closer to the end before you get to the final level, which opens with your typical bad guy reveal and a cutscene that shows Natla thousands of years ago being exiled by the Atlanteans. She then explains her plan for creating a new cycle of human evolution, yada yada yada. Then, you're thrust into a simple but satisfying boss fight, you destroy the artifact, and then similar to earlier, it's time to escape the temple. But this time it's much more insane. With the toughest platforming sections the game has shown you by a very large margin. Shouts out to modern technology and save states, because finishing this game review would have taken much longer without because of the final level alone. You face off against Natla one final time, then she gives you a fake out "I'm not dead yet," but then you dispose of her easily. All that's left is to finish off one final platforming session, then slide your happy ass out of there. Shockingly enough, this game was the hardest so far to score in this series. You would think with how much I praised it and how much fun I had that I would instantly say that you should binge it, but there are some obvious gripes that I actually had while playing this game for the review. The controls in this game are something you get used to, but the amount of miscues that can lead to deaths and overall inconvenience is a lot to look past. And if you're playing this game on original hardware, save crystals are very sparse, and once you use one, you can only use that one once. So if you die, that's 15-20 minutes. If you don't know where you're going, you're gonna have to redo every single time, and some of these are gonna take more than just 1 or 2 attempts. And while it's not the end of the world, it doesn't make the game worse. It does kind of turn me off from the idea of wanting to, finish the whole thing in a week. Which leads me to my next point. This is an adventure game. This is supposed to be something that you enjoy. You're supposed to look for every nook and cranny and find every secret you can because they benefit you. If you're trying to just rush through the game and get through all of it, that might actually hamper your experience a little bit with this title, especially revisiting it. Those issues aside, Tomb Raider is still a great game. Did it age well? Honestly, no. Is it still fun, flaws aside? Absolutely. And for that, I am going to say that it is worth revisiting. You will have a much better time taking your time with this game rather than just trying to blast through it. Oh, look, I found the bear. If you're still here, thank you so much for watching. Go ahead and subscribe if you're into this series, as there's new episodes weekly. Go ahead and comment and let me know if there's a game that you want me to take a look at in the near future. Other than that, that's all I got. So I will see you guys next time. Peace.